Hi, I'm Meg. I'm the editor at Seamwork, and today I'm going to show you my fabric stash. I've been building this stash for about 7 or 8 years, so I have quite a few things in my stash, but I'm going to show you some of my favorite fabrics, some of the fabrics that I've been holding on to for years, as well as some tips that I have for maintaining and enjoying your fabric stash. My favorite thing about my stash is that I have it all out on display. I use one of those IKEA Expedit shelves to display and store my fabrics so that I can see it at a glance. This works for me. It might not work for you, but if you like to have your inspiration all around you and there at a glance, I really recommend having your stash in a visible, prominent place. Then you can work at kind of curating it and making it feel a part of your space, and it'll just always be there for you when you feel like sewing. So that's my approach to setting up my stash, and I'll show you how I organize the fabric in a way that makes sense for me. I'm pretty notoriously bad at folding clothing, which means that I'm also not that great at folding fabric, so I prefer to store my fabric in my stash rolled. This works for me, it's easier, it still looks nice, it doesn't make more wrinkles, you still have to do the same amount of pressing as if you were to fold it, but I find that when you have different amounts of yardage, sometimes I can kind of stuff the fabric into my cubbies a little easier than if I were to try to fold everything and stack it. Do what works for you, but if you don't feel great about your folding techniques, then I recommend rolling your fabric for your stash. My fabric cubbies are organized roughly by fabric type or print or mood. I try to keep some sort of organization to it so that I can kind of play with palettes, know where things are when I need to grab them, and it just makes it easier to kind of see what I have on hand. So I'll organize things like put all my prints in one cubby, I'll put all of my knit fabrics in another cubby. Stripes get their own special cubby because I do have a lot of stripes in my collection. I have a cubby for kids fabric, I have a cubby for fabric that I really like to wear, you know, my colors. And that organization makes sense to me because at a glance I can see which colors I have, which colors I'm lacking. I can be reminded every time I sew that I just have way too many stripes, which deters me from buying more stripes, kind of. And so this system just enables me to keep track of my inventory, stay inspired by looking at my fabric, and then also know where things are when I need them. Now I'm going to share a couple pieces from my fabric stash that I really love, or that I'm feeling kind of stuck with, and maybe in the comments below you can help me think of what to make with them. So just to start, I want to share my favorite piece of fabric. I got this linen. It's almost like a denim. You can see it's got a really nice dye to it, kind of a worn vintage look. And I got this fabric shopping in Tokyo. So not only does the fabric mean a lot to me, but you know, I know when I will actually make a garment with this, I'll just remember my trip and how much fun I had and how amazing the fabric in Tokyo is. And so this garment will just mean a little bit more to me than maybe some other garments that I make. That being said, I haven't found the perfect lining to go with this fabric. I want to make sort of a lightweight coat or jacket that will stand the test of time so that I can wear it forever and ever and ever. So I'm still on the hunt for the perfect lining to go with this kind of linen denim in this lovely cloudy gray color. Next up I have, this is a very me print, stripe. So like I said, I have a lot of stripes in my collection and I really struggle to find garments to sew with stripes. I love stripes, they're my favorite pattern, but I have a ton of them in my collection and I find I don't sew with them as much as I want to. So this is a beautiful striped linen that I got from Style Maker Fabrics. They have lovely seasonal collections that they release in their shop. I'll link to their shop below, and I highly recommend shopping at Style Maker Fabrics. And so I'm hoping this summer I can find the perfect pattern for this stripe, potentially some lounge shorts, maybe something easy and breezy that'll make me feel good this summer. If you have any tips or ideas for patterns with stripes or something that might look good in this stripe in particular, please comment below and let me know. I'd love to get some ideas for what to make. Finally, I just have a little tip for you. If you enjoy prints but you don't wear prints that often, treat yourself to a little bit of yardage. I mean, this is maybe 3/4 of a yard or 1 yard of nice printed fabric. This is Liberty. I got it here in Portland at Josephine's Dry Goods. If you're in Portland, or if you're just looking for a expertly curated selection of Liberty, I recommend Josephine's. And this is a piece of Liberty that I got knowing that, you know, I probably wouldn't wear a full garment in Liberty, but I definitely will make some bias tape or line some pockets, or maybe even a full lining or a facing. Just a little pop of print that's special for me with my garment. That's how I kind of satisfy my love for prints and my desire to buy prints when I don't wear them in a full garment. So nothing wrong with treating yourself to a fat quarter or a nice little piece of beautiful print if you want to just keep it inside for you. I have just one more tip for your stash. This is something that I've really been trying to practice with my stash, which is to save your scraps and save them in a way that makes you want to work with them later. I've been saving all of my scraps and putting them aside and turning them into a quilt. I'm using a lovely class that Beth from Sew DIY put together specifically for garment sewists. She walks you through how to make a quilt out of all the scraps from your excess garment fabric. So this quilt is going to end up being made up entirely of little remnants from projects that I have sewn to wear. And instead I'll have this beautiful blanket that I can use with all the memories of my sewing projects. And so to do this, I just save my scraps. I toss them all into a basket, not very organized. And then I'll go through them and kind of sort them by color or fabric type so that I can organize them for projects in the future. If you want some more inspiration for how to do this, we actually have an article written by Christy Johnson, who's this amazing textile artist. I'll put a link to her article below, but she teaches you how to treat your scraps with respect. Store them in a way that makes you feel inspired to work with them and turn them into something new. So I highly recommend reading her article and maybe checking out Beth's class. I'll put a link to that as well below. In case you want to make a quilt from your garment scraps, because if you're like me, you probably have a lot of scraps that you don't really want to throw away because the fabric is so, so beautiful. So that's a tip that I have for working with your stash, finding joy in your stash, and just really using your stash as a source for inspiration rather than a burden. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me in my stash today. I'd love to hear about your stash. If you want to comment below, let me know some of your secrets. And I'll see you next time. Happy sewing.